My brother showed up at my condo on a Tuesday night with a bottle of wine and a favor to ask. That should have been the first sign. He doesn't bring wine, he brings problems and expects you to pour. I buzzed him up anyway. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour day closing a financing deal for a client. My blazer was still on, my heels were still on, and I was standing at my kitchen counter eating leftover rice straight from the container when he knocked. He looked around my place, the way he always does, slowly, taking inventory, and set the bottle on my island without asking for a glass. "You're doing well," he said. It wasn't a compliment. It was an assessment. "I want you to tell me in the comments what's the most entitled thing a sibling has ever done to you." I read every single one. My condo is in Vancouver. 16th floor, southeast corner, views of the water on a clear day. I bought it 4 years ago when I was 29, after 7 years of working in commercial real estate finance, living in a studio in East Van, eating dinner at my desk most nights. It's worth just over $1.2 million now. I know because my brother looked it up before he came over. I know because he told me so, casually, like it was a fun fact, while he was opening the wine without being asked. He poured 2 glasses and slid one toward me. "I need to talk to you about something." His girlfriend, they'd been together almost 3 years, was pregnant, 19 weeks. They'd found out a few months ago and hadn't told anyone yet. They were living in a 2-bedroom rental in Langley, 45 minutes out, and the lease was up in 60 days. His contract work had dried up. She was on reduced hours at her clinic job. They needed somewhere to land. "Just for a few months," he said, "until we get sorted." I said I'd think about it. He left the bottle. He took his glass. I stood at my window that night and watched the lights on the water. A few months. I knew what that meant. I'd heard just a few months from him before, when he borrowed my car for a weekend and had it for 6 weeks. When he needed to use my business account just once to front a deposit for a client, and it took me 3 months and a formal letter to get him to reimburse me. The thing about my brother is that he's not malicious in an obvious way. He doesn't lie to your face. He just operates on a different set of assumptions, the main one being that what's mine is also available to him if he needs it badly enough. He's always been that way. Growing up, I was the one who got scholarships, worked summers, saved methodically. He was the one who borrowed from everyone and paid back no one, and our parents called it charm. I told him no 2 days later. I said I'd help them find something, help with first and last if I could. But I couldn't have people living in my home. I needed my space to work. I traveled for clients. I had a routine. He said he understood. That was on a Friday. On Sunday morning, I came back from a run to find my building's concierge looking uncomfortable behind his desk. My brother was already upstairs. He'd told the concierge he was dropping something off for me. The concierge knew him. He'd been up before, Christmas, once or twice, and had let him use the spare fob I'd registered at his name 2 years ago for a different emergency. I took the elevator up. My own key. My own door. My brother answered it. He was in a t-shirt and socks, coffee in hand like it was his kitchen. His girlfriend was on my couch with her feet up on my coffee table. There were 2 duffel bags and a laundry basket in my hallway. "We just need a few weeks to sort things out," he said. We didn't have anywhere else to go. "My girlfriend is 20 weeks pregnant," he added. "You can't make us leave." I stood in my own doorway and felt the floor tilt. I went to a hotel in Kitsilano, $190 a night. I sat on the edge of the bed and called my lawyer. She's not a family lawyer. She handles contracts for my real estate work, small firm, sharp as anyone I've ever met. She picked up on the second ring even though it was a Sunday. I told her what happened. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay, here's the problem. In British Columbia, when someone is in your home with your implied permission and your concierge letting them in with a registered fob is going to count as implied permission, they acquire certain occupant protections. Not full tenancy, but enough to complicate things. If there's a pregnant person involved, no judge is going to sign anything on an expedited basis. We're looking at RTB proceedings, hearings, at minimum 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. They're counting on you to fold," she said. "They're counting on the process being too slow and painful and you just agreeing to let them stay." I asked what my options were. "We file. We document everything. We start the clock. And you don't say another word to them directly. Everything goes through me." I hung up and looked at the ceiling. My brother is not stupid. He knew exactly what he was doing when he showed up on a Sunday with a pregnant girlfriend and a laundry basket. He knew I wouldn't call the police on a woman in her second trimester. He knew the optics. He knew I'd be the villain in that story. He'd been watching how I operated for 32 years, and he had correctly identified the one leverage point I couldn't move against. What he forgot is that I also know how he operates. I've been watching him for 32 years too. Here is what you need to understand about my brother and me. In our family, there have always been two kinds of children. There's him, the one who needs things. The one for whom every problem is a collective problem, every crisis is a family crisis, every shortfall is somehow also your shortfall. He has never once experienced a difficulty that didn't eventually become my responsibility in some form. He is perpetually almost stable, almost sorted. That almost is load-bearing. It keeps everyone around him orbiting, helping, covering. And then there's me. I'm the one who sorted herself out. I'm the one who doesn't need anything, who handles it, who is fine. Which in our family's accounting means I am the resource. I am not a person with my own needs and limits. I am the backup plan. I understood this clearly for the first time about 2 years ago. Our mother called me, not to check in. She doesn't call to check in, to tell me that my brother's truck had broken down and he needed money for repairs or he'd lose his contract. Could I help? It was $3,400. I transferred it the same day because I had it and because she sounded worried and because I'm an idiot. He got the truck fixed. 8 months later, I found out he'd sold the truck and bought a different one. Never mentioned the $3,400. When I brought it up, he said he'd been meaning to sort it out and gave me $200 and called us even. $200. Our mother, when I told her, said, "He's going through a hard time. You know how he is." Yes, I do know how he is. That's the problem. So when he showed up at my door with a pregnant girlfriend and a plan, I knew it wasn't desperation, it was calculation. He had looked at the board and made a move. He was betting that I would absorb the cost, the way I always do. Because the alternative, fighting my own family while his girlfriend is visibly pregnant, would be socially unbearable for me. He was right about that. He was wrong about what I was going to do about it. For 4 days, I stayed at the hotel. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I let him sit in my condo, my heated floors, my espresso machine, my water view, and think he'd won. I needed him comfortable. I needed him not watching his back. On the 3rd day, I called our mother. I made my voice tired, soft. I told her I couldn't keep fighting, that I understood they needed help, that I wanted to do the right thing. She sounded relieved in a way that told me she'd known about this plan before Sunday. She hadn't warned me. She'd been waiting to see if it worked. I said I wanted to talk to my brother about a real solution, something permanent. She said she'd have him call me. He called that evening. His voice had that particular quality it gets when he thinks he's handling me. Gentle, patient, slightly patronizing. Like I was a client he needed to manage. "I'm glad you're being reasonable," he said. "We just need stability. For the baby." I said I understood. I said I'd been thinking, and if they needed a stable place, maybe the right move was to actually formalize things, not rent, ownership. I'd been thinking about investment properties anyway. If I transferred my condo to him, structured properly to avoid a massive tax hit, then he'd have real security, a real asset for his family. He was quiet, recalculating. "You do that? I want to help," I said, "but we have to do it right. The CRA will come after us both if we just do a straight transfer. My lawyer says there's a way to structure it where you make a declaration that you contributed to the original down payment. It's a legal affidavit. Makes it look like a buy-in rather than a gift, so the tax exposure drops significantly." He asked how that would work. I told him it was standard practice. A statutory declaration. He'd just need to confirm in writing that he provided a portion of the down payment funds when I originally bought the place, that it was a family arrangement that was never formally documented. "How much do we say?" he asked. Immediately, without hesitation. That answer told me everything I needed. The down payment was $220,000, I said. "We'd need you to declare that at least half came from you, $110,000. A pause. "Then, and the CRA won't check into it? It's an internal document for the transfer," I said. "My notary files it with the title transfer. It's about establishing the paper trail for the transaction, not triggering an audit." I heard him exhale. "All right," he said. "Let's get it done." While my lawyer was drafting the statutory declaration, I was doing what I should have done 2 years ago when the truck money disappeared. I was digging. I didn't need to hack anything or hire anyone. In Canada, a lot is public record if you know where to look and what to search. I started with a federal insolvency database. The Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy has a public search tool. Searchable by name, by province, by year. I typed in my brother's name. I found him in 40 seconds. Consumer proposal, filed 14 months ago in BC. I paid the $2 fee to access the filing summary. A consumer proposal is a formal agreement with creditors administered by a licensed insolvency trustee, filed under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. To qualify, you have to demonstrate to the trustee and the courts what you own, what you owe, and what you're able to pay. He had listed his assets in the filing: cash and cash equivalents, 0; savings and investments, 0; amounts receivable from family, not applicable. He had declared himself to have no liquid assets, 0. He was so financially depleted, the trustee had accepted a proposal where he'd pay back his creditors 30 cents on the dollar over 4 years. The federal government had reviewed his financial picture and agreed, this man has nothing. That filing was 14 months ago. And in roughly 72 hours, I was going to have him sign a witnessed, notarized statutory declaration swearing that 14 months ago, he had $110,000 in cash that he'd quietly provided to me for a real estate purchase. He couldn't be both. He could not be a man with 0 assets for the federal insolvency process and simultaneously be a man sitting on 6 figures of cash savings for a property declaration. A consumer proposal is filed under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. Providing false information to a licensed insolvency trustee or filing documents that contradict sworn insolvency filings is a federal offense. Fines up to $10,000, up to 3 years in prison. And critically, the trustee can apply to annul the proposal entirely, which means all his discharged debt comes back immediately, plus interest, plus penalties. I forwarded the filing to my lawyer with one line: found it. Book the notary and a witness. We're doing this formally. She replied in 4 minutes, understood. Setting it up for Thursday. I want to tell you what Thursday felt like because it wasn't triumphant. Not yet, it was surgical. Deliberate. The kind of calm that comes when you've done all the thinking you're going to do, and the only thing left is execution. My lawyer's office is in Yaletown. Clean building, small reception, the kind of place where the quiet is expensive. I was there at 1. The notary arrived at 1:15. There was a court reporter. My lawyer had insisted, told my brother it was standard practice for the transfer documentation, that the building management company required witnessed sworn testimony for any title change given recent fraud prevention protocols in the province. He didn't question it. Of course he didn't. He was getting $1 million condo. He wasn't going to read the fine print. They arrived at 2. My brother, his girlfriend, and I hadn't expected this, our mother who hadn't warned me. Our mother who had known about the Sunday plan and said nothing. She walked in behind them in her good coat looking like she was attending something important, which I suppose she was. They sat down. My brother looked at me and gave me a small nod, the kind that means, good girl. You're making the right call. My lawyer cleared her throat. Before we proceed, she said, addressing my brother directly, I need you to understand what you're signing. This is a statutory declaration under the Canada Evidence Act. The notary will administer an oath. Every word you state becomes a sworn legal record. If any information in this declaration conflicts with other sworn filings you've made, federally or provincially, that conflict constitutes a serious legal issue. Do you understand? My brother glanced at me, then back at her. It's for the condo transfer, he said. Let's just get it done. She slid the declaration across the table. He read it the way people read things they've already decided to sign, scanning for the signature line. His girlfriend leaned over to look. Our mother folded her hands. The notary asked him to confirm he understood the oath he was about to swear. He said yes. He stated his name for the record. He swore that he had, at the time of my original purchase of the property, provided $110,000 from his personal cash savings as a contribution toward the down payment, and that this had been a private family arrangement not previously documented in writing. He signed with a pen I had brought, one of those heavy ones. He pressed down like he was signing a lease on his own future, which, in a way, he was. His girlfriend initialed as a witness. Our mother watched. And then my brother clicked the pen closed, sat back, and looked at me with an expression I can only describe as satisfaction. Okay, he said, your turn. Where's the transfer document? I didn't reach for anything. My lawyer opened the folder she kept closed on her side of the table the entire time. She placed a printed document in front of my brother. It was not a title transfer. It was his consumer proposal filing, pulled directly from the OSB database. 14 months old. His name, his province, his trustee, his declared assets. He stared at it. His girlfriend said, "What is that?" "That," my lawyer said, "is your filed consumer proposal under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, in which you declared under oath to a licensed insolvency trustee that you had zero cash assets, zero savings, nothing." She tapped the date on the filing. Then she tapped the date on the statutory declaration he'd just signed. "You've now sworn in two separate legal proceedings to two entirely contradictory financial realities." The room went very still. I could hear the court reporter's machine. The sound it makes is a kind of soft mechanical clicking. I'll hear it in my memory for a long time. My brother's face didn't fall all at once. It went in stages. Confusion first. Then calculation. I could see him trying to find the exit. Then something that might have been fear, though he's not a person who admits to fear easily. "It was a gift," he said finally. "From a friend. I got it after the proposal." "Then it was income," my lawyer said, "not missing a beat, which you were required to report to your trustee under the terms of your proposal. Failure to report material income to your trustee is grounds for annulment." Our mother made a sound. My brother pushed back from the table. "You set me up. I gave you a document to sign," I said. "You chose what to put in it. You tricked me. You knew I'd—" He stopped. "I knew you'd sign," I said, "because you wanted the condo more than you wanted to be careful. You've always done that. You see something you want and you just take it and figure out the paperwork later. That's what you did on Sunday. That's what you did with the truck money. That's what you've always done." He stood up. His girlfriend grabbed his arm. Our mother said my name, just my name, in the voice she uses when she thinks I'm embarrassing the family. "You're destroying your brother," she said, "over a condo. He tried to take my home," I said. "He used your girlfriend's pregnancy as a legal shield. He moved in on a Sunday because he knew it would be harder to remove him. That wasn't desperation. That was a plan." "You don't have to report it," she said, looking at my lawyer. "This is a family matter." My lawyer looked at her evenly. "I'm an officer of the court. I don't have discretion about what to do with evidence of a federal filing offense." My brother said he was going to get his own lawyer. He said this was illegal. He said I'd manipulated him. His voice was getting louder and the court reporter kept typing, and I think somewhere in the room he understood that everything he was saying was being recorded. My lawyer told him that the notarized declaration and the consumer proposal filing would be forwarded to his licensed insolvency trustee by end of business, that the trustee would assess whether grounds existed for annulment and whether a referral to the OSB's investigation division was warranted, that if the police attended my property before then to remove unauthorized occupants, which they would because my lawyer had already called, he would want to not be present given the circumstances. His girlfriend started crying. Not performance crying. Real crying, the kind with no audience. I looked at her and I felt something. I want to be honest about that. She was 20 weeks pregnant and she was crying in a lawyer's office in Yaletown, and I don't think she had fully known what she was walking into. I think she had trusted my brother's version of the plan. I said to her directly, "I'm not doing this to you, I'm doing this to him, and I'd suggest you think carefully about what he told you before Sunday and what he didn't." She didn't say anything. She just held her stomach with both hands. My brother looked at me one last time before they left. I expected anger. What I got was something more complicated, wounded, calculating, like he was already figuring out the next move, like even now he was trying to find the angle. "We're family," he said. "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not pressing charges myself. I'm letting the trustee decide. But you don't get to live in my home. You don't get my assets. You don't get to use a baby as a crowbar to open my front door. That's done." He left. Our mother followed him without saying anything to me. She didn't look back. I sat in the chair after they were gone and my lawyer asked if I was okay and I said yes, which wasn't entirely true. Okay isn't really the word for it. Resolved, maybe. like something that had been infected for a long time had finally been cleaned out. The trustee moved quickly. Within a week, my brother received formal notice that his consumer proposal was under review for potential annulment based on newly surfaced contradictory declarations. The OSB's investigation process is not fast, these things take months, but the review itself immediately complicated his ability to take on new debt, sign leases, or access certain financial services while it was open. The condo was cleared by the time I got back to it that evening. My building manager had coordinated with the police. Non-contact removal. 2 bags, a laundry basket, everything they'd brought, gone. Nothing of mine missing, though my good olive oil had been opened and my guest bathroom towels had been used and left in a pile on the floor. I stood in my own kitchen. Same view, same floors, same everything, except I felt like I was seeing it clearly for the first time in years. The affidavit, the notary, the court reporter. People asked me sometimes if it was too much, if I went too far. If there was a simpler way, there was a simpler way. I could have filed with the RTB and waited 6 weeks and then evicted them legally, and it would have been over. But it wouldn't have been over. It would never have been over. It would never have been over. Because the truck money would have stayed a thing that happened. The Sunday invasion would have stayed a thing that happened, and the next time, because there would have been a next time, he would have found a different angle. A different pregnancy, a different emergency, a different ask made at a moment when saying no made me the monster. You cannot negotiate your way out of someone who has decided you're a resource. You can't be patient enough. You can't be generous enough. Every concession becomes the new floor. Every time you absorb the cost, you confirm that the cost is yours to absorb. I'm not a bank account. I'm not a backup plan. I'm not the family member who handles it so that everyone else doesn't have to. I am a person who worked very hard for a very long time, and I live in a home that I own, and I am not required to set it on fire to keep other people warm. I gave my building manager a new protocol. My brother's name was removed from every registered contact, every fob record, every visitor list. He does not have access to my building. He will not have access to my building. I changed my personal number. I made a new email. I reached out to my brother's girlfriend through a mutual contact, not to relitigate anything, just to make sure she had the number for BC Housing and a few contacts I had in social services. She'd need them more than he would. I don't know if she used them. I hope she did. I blocked my mother for 90 days, not forever, just long enough for the noise to settle and for me to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted to have with someone who had known the plan and said nothing. I'm still figuring that out. What I know is this: I am sitting in my own kitchen right now, coffee going, water view, morning light coming in from the southeast. The city is doing what it does. I am fine. I am better than fine. I did not fold. I did not write a check to make it go away. I did not absorb the cost and move on and quietly add it to the list of things my family has taken from me. I found the one thing my brother loved more than fairness, more than family, more than being honest, and I let him sign it. If you believe that protecting yourself is not the same as being cruel, subscribe and tell me, would you have done the same thing, or would you have hesitated? I've thought a lot about what kind of person signs a legal declaration without reading it. The easy answer is a greedy one, and that's part of it. But I think the fuller answer is someone who has spent so long getting away with things that they've stopped believing consequences are real. My brother didn't read the statutory declaration carefully because, in his experience, there was never anything in the fine print that actually applied to him. Rules had always bent. People had always absorbed the cost. I had always absorbed the cost. I had always absorbed the cost. Why would this time be different? That's not stupidity. That's a pattern that was allowed to become a belief. And I have to be honest with myself about my role in that. Every time I transferred money and didn't follow up, every time I let the truck thing go, every time I let the truck thing go, every time I told myself it wasn't worth the conflict, I was teaching him something. I was teaching him that I was the kind of person who would eventually let it go. That my limits were soft, that my no had an expiration date if you just waited long enough or made the ask uncomfortable enough. The Sunday he showed up wasn't a betrayal out of nowhere. It was the logical conclusion of a decade of small lessons I had accidentally taught him about who I was. What I did in that Yaletown office wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that because revenge feels like something you do for yourself, in the heat of it, to make the pain go away. What I did was closer to correction. His filing contradicted his declaration. I didn't manufacture that. I didn't plant anything. I found a truth he had created himself, and I put it next to another truth he was in the process of creating, and I let him see what they looked like, side by side. The consequence came from his own choices. It always does, eventually. It just usually takes longer than we'd like, and sometimes it only comes if someone decides to stop smoothing it over. I think about his girlfriend sometimes. She was 20 weeks pregnant in a lawyer's office, watching her plan fall apart, and I don't think she understood everything she'd walked into. I gave her what resources I could. I hope she used them. I hope she found steadier ground than what my brother was offering. That's the part of the story that doesn't have a clean ending, and I've made my peace with that uncertainty. What I know is that protecting yourself is not the same as being unkind. That having a limit is not the same as being cold. That there is a difference between the person who absorbs everything in the name of family and the person who decides that family does not mean unlimited access to what you've built. Intelligence without the will to act on it is just awareness of your own suffering, and suffering quietly, accommodating endlessly, softening every boundary because the confrontation feels too costly. That is not goodness. That is just a slower way of losing yourself. I live in my condo. The view is the same as it always was. The coffee is good, the floors are warm. I earned this, all of it, and I am not required to give it away to prove that I love someone.